I never meant to eavesdrop. But sometimes the truth finds you when you least expect it. I was walking past my father's study, arms full of laundry, when I heard my name, flat, emotionless like a line item on a bill. My parents were inside, voices low and businesslike. "We'll have her name removed before the next meeting," my mother said. "It's cleaner this way. She's never really belonged." My father agreed, already discussing the paperwork with the family lawyer. I stood frozen in the hallway, the weight of their words pressing down on me harder than any burden I'd ever carried. There was no anger in their voices, no regret, just cold calculation. In that moment, something inside me snapped. If they wanted me erased, if they wanted to pretend I never existed, I would give them exactly what they asked for, but not the way they expected. I wouldn't beg or plead for a place at their table. I wouldn't fight for scraps of their approval. If they wanted me gone, I'd show them what gone really means, and I'd make sure my absence was the only thing they'd never be able to ignore. Looking back, I can't remember a single birthday where my parents looked at me the way they looked at my brother. At family gatherings, I was the one setting the table, refilling drinks, and quietly slipping away when the laughter grew too loud. My achievements were met with polite nods, while my brother's smallest victories were celebrated with toasts and applause. I learned early that my place was on the sidelines, watching life happen to everyone else. Even in childhood photos, I'm always at the edge of the frame, half smiling, half hoping someone would notice if I disappeared. The worst part wasn't the neglect. It was the realization that I was never truly wanted. I was the extra, the afterthought, the one who made the family picture look complete but never felt complete inside. Every time I tried to speak up, my words were brushed aside or drowned out by more important conversations. Over time, I stopped trying. I became an expert at fading into the background, convincing myself that invisibility was safer than rejection. But the cost of being invisible is heavy. It's the ache of knowing you could vanish and no one would miss you until the day you decide to make them remember. It happened on a rainy Thursday, the kind of day when the house felt smaller and secrets seemed to echo off the walls. I was searching for an old photo album in the study when I heard voices drifting from the library. My parents were there with our family lawyer, their tones hushed but unmistakably serious. I paused in the hallway, curiosity prickling at my skin. "We need to make sure she can't contest anything," my father said. "Her name comes off the will, quietly." "No drama," the lawyer hesitated. But my mother pressed on. "She's never fit in. This is best for everyone." My heart pounded as I realized what I was hearing. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone and hit record, capturing every word as evidence. Their betrayal was no longer just a suspicion. It was a plan, unfolding right in front of me. I slipped away before they could see me, the recording burning a hole in my pocket. For the first time, I had proof. They weren't just erasing me from their lives. They were making sure I had nothing left to fight for. I wanted to storm into the library and demand answers, but something colder and sharper took hold of me. Instead, I slipped back into my old role, the invisible child, the one who never asked questions. At dinner, I smiled and nodded, pretending not to notice the glances my parents exchanged. I let them believe I was as oblivious as ever, all the while quietly plotting my next move. That night, I sat at my laptop, searching inheritance laws and loopholes, reading late into the darkness. I made lists of every family asset I could remember, cross-referencing names and dates, looking for patterns and weaknesses. The more I learned, the more determined I became. If they wanted a quiet erasure, I would give them a silent war. I realized I didn't need their approval or their love. I needed leverage. Every polite conversation, every fake smile became another piece of my strategy. I was done waiting for them to see me. From that moment on, I would see everything. I would play their game, but this time, I'd be the one writing the rules while my parents carried on with their lives. Confident in my ignorance, I became a shadow in my own home. Late at night, I crept into the study, rifling through dusty file boxes and locked drawers. I scoured old emails on the family computer, piecing together a timeline of transactions and signatures. The deeper I dug, the more I uncovered hidden bank accounts in distant cities, property transfers disguised as gifts to distant relatives, and legal documents with my forged signature. Every discovery was a fresh sting, proof that their betrayal ran deeper than I'd ever imagined. I started keeping meticulous notes, organizing everything into folders, dates, amounts, names, and connections. I even found a series of emails between my parents and their lawyer, discussing how to minimize complications and ensure a clean transition. The language was cold, clinical, and left no doubt about their intentions. I realized they'd been planning this for years, slowly moving assets out of my reach while keeping me in the dark. But with every secret I uncovered, my resolve hardened. I wasn't just gathering evidence for myself, I was building a case that no one could ignore. By the time I finished, I had a mountain of proof. My parents thought they could erase me quietly, but I was about to make sure my presence was impossible to forget. Just when I thought I was fighting this battle alone, I received a call from my great-aunt Margaret, a woman I'd barely spoken to since childhood. She'd heard whispers about my parents' plans and reached out, her voice tight with anger. "They did the same to me," she admitted, explaining how they'd cut her out of her own inheritance decades ago. She'd spent years researching family law and had found a legal loophole that could rewrite everything. Together, we pored over old wills and property deeds, uncovering a forgotten clause in my grandmother's original estate plan. It stated that any attempt to disinherit a direct heir without a valid reason would automatically transfer all assets to that heir. My parents had never told me about it, assuming it was irrelevant. With Aunt Margaret's help, I compiled all the evidence, forged signatures, hidden accounts, and the forgotten clause. For the first time, I felt hope. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting for everyone my parents had wronged over the years. The game was about to change, and this time I had a powerful ally on my side. The day of the final will signing arrived, and the room was thick with tension. My parents sat at the head of the table, confident in their victory, while the lawyer prepared to read the document aloud. I waited until he reached the section about my inheritance, then stood up, my folder of evidence in hand. "Before you continue," I said, my voice steady and clear, "I have something to share." I laid out the documents one by one, the forged signatures, the hidden accounts, and the forgotten clause from my grandmother's will. The lawyer's face paled as he read through them, realizing the implications. My parents tried to interrupt, calling me a liar, but I held up a hand silencing them. "According to this clause," I explained calmly, "any attempt to disinherit me without a valid reason automatically transfers all assets to me. You have no valid reason, only lies." Lawyer had no choice but to rewrite the will, leaving my name as the sole heir. My parents stared at me, their faces a mix of shock and rage, but they were powerless. The will was legally binding, and there was nothing they could do to change it. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was finally seen, not as an afterthought, but as someone who couldn't be ignored. I walked out of the room, leaving them to face the consequences of their actions. The erasure was over. It was my turn to write the story. News of the will rewrite spread like wildfire through the family. Relatives whispered behind my parents' backs, questioning their motives and wondering what else they'd hidden. My parents tried to save face, but the damage was done. Their reputation as the perfect, loving family was shattered, replaced by whispers of betrayal and greed. I didn't gloat or rub their failure in their faces. I simply packed my bags and moved out, leaving them to deal with the mess they'd created. For the first time in my life, I felt free from their expectations, their criticism, and their constant need to make me feel small. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had my own life to live, and I was ready to start it on my own terms. The erasure was over, and I was finally truly myself. Looking back, I realized that being erased was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to grow stronger, to think smarter, and to fight for what I deserved. I learned that no one has the right to write you out of your own story. Only you can do that. If you've ever been pushed aside, ignored, or erased by the people you love, know that you're not alone. Your voice matters, your story matters, and you deserve to be heard. Share your story in the comments below, and subscribe for more true tales of justice, resilience, and the power of standing up for yourself.